any West Side phone, for every people are just walking in, just scan the QR code. There is a pre-survey, and the questions are just for me as a researcher to kind of see some people's attitudes towards hijab. It's completely anonymous. I have no idea who's saying who, so I really am not gonna know anything. Oh, we got one person to answer, thank you. Oh, two responses. Yeah, you guys are good, mashallah. Maybe give me a thumbs up if you're done, so I kind of have a good idea. Okay, about half, okay. I'll give you about 2 minutes, is that good, inshallah?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
I'm done.
We're proud of you, Sister Anna. You're wonderful. Again, for anyone walking in, please go ahead and scan the QR code. There is about 16 questions on there and just on attitudes towards hijab. Completely anonymous, I'm not gonna know. One of my classmates is here, sup Katie? Thanks for coming.
Sit down, sit down. Do you need more chair?
Yes, I'm going.
Do you need more chair? There's a chair.
So I know some of us are still taking it, but what was that survey like for you guys? For anyone that did take it, those questions that were on there? Oh, you thought I was just gonna sit here and lecture? Nuh-uh, I talk to you guys. I know some of your names. Were there any questions you're wondering why is she asking this, or you're thinking that was interesting? Anything that came up for you?
Yeah, it was really important, like, one of the questions was about how, like, the West has framed the hijab and how it's affected our own psyche. And so that's something I've been thinking about a lot, and so that's why I thought this topic was phenomenal.
Yeah, and that was something I was very intentional about asking too. So for those who didn't hear, Dr. Hina, mashallah, she rolled her eyes. But anyways, for her, she was mentioning about how there was a question on there saying how Western perceptions does influence the way that we perceive it. And that's literally gonna be basically the whole talk that we're gonna have in discussion. I'm not saying lecture because I personally think that when it comes to teaching and learning, it's a collaborative experience because I was a teacher for a year and I can sit here and go over PowerPoints and then by the end of it, you guys are gonna be half asleep. There's no point in me doing that, and I'm not gonna waste your time and I'm not gonna waste my time with that too. So I'm gonna be asking questions. My goal for you is this, even for my introverts out there, try to answer one thing, and there's gonna be some reflection stuff out there, so there's no way you can get it wrong, okay? Are we cool? Is that a good goal? All right, bismillah. So before I start all of this, there is an important skill, and I want to actually start this framework with this concept about talking and listening, because this is something I have noticed we are not practicing very well. When it comes to active listening, one of the things that we try to do is, have you ever had a conversation with someone and this is what it looks like over here? Your children? I feel that with my parents, and it's awkward because my mom is staring at me right now. My mom's in the front row. What's up, Mom? So anyways, yeah, it's a problem where we're hearing people, but we're not actually listening to what they say. And I have my classmate in the back, so Katie, I might pick on you to help me answer some questions from the therapeutic lens. But the thing is, for us as therapists, what's really, really sad is a lot of people that come to see me, they don't have a mental illness. To be really honest, like I'm listening to them, and what I notice is that they don't have safe spaces or people to actually listen to them. So that's why I want to start over here. And the other part is the fact that there might be some things or concepts that are new to you today that I might be going over from the Sira, from the Quran itself, and you might be like, is Sister Nadia on drugs? No, I'm not. You might be asking that, and that's perfectly fine, and you are absolutely allowed to ask questions, and I want you to, but I want you to listen and hear what I have to say before you respond. So there's a difference between listening to respond and listening to learn, and I'm encouraging you to listen to learn today. Are we good? Does that make sense? And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ was known to do. When he would talk to people, he would face his whole body towards them. He would make appropriate eye contact with them. And that's something I really hope that we start practicing more, not just today, but moving forward. And this is a reminder for myself and for all of you. All right? Okay. And again, like I said, there is a book on here. I have it right here. Do not take this book from me. Sheikh Miguel signed it. It's my property. Sorry, I can't. But it's something that's very, very special to me because this book really shaped something for me where it's not only about how are we listening to other people, but how are we listening to ourselves and how are we listening to Allah? Like, how are we actually listening and hearing what he has to say because when you're reading the Quran, it's supposed to be not just reading, it's supposed to be, again, a collaborative experience. Allah is speaking to you directly. Like, this is for you to learn and to understand from. So are you really listening to what he is telling you? And when you're reading things about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are you really listening to what he has to tell you? Do you really understand who this man was? Because he's the one that was crying, ummati, ummati. But are you crying for him? Are you yearning for him? Okay? This book is wonderful, and I really do recommend everyone to read that just to get a kickstart. So, you guys are in groups of like 2 to 3 people here. So what I want you to do is at your table, and if you're alone, go find someone. I want you very shortly, because this is what I'm telling you, 2 minutes per person, tell that person about your journey with the hijab, or like if you don't have a journey, and why that is in 2 minutes, using that skill of listening to learn and not listening to respond. Are we good? Oh yeah, I'm making you work for it today. 2 minutes. Introduce yourself, tell them your name.
My name is Hijab. I'm 17. So I started wearing hijab when I was in 8th grade, actually. And I wanted to wear it earlier, but my mom didn't wear it even past high school. She was afraid it was going to be clear. Or like, oh, get into a situation and I being the wrong person. I chose to do the job. And so far, nobody said anything, and I really enjoyed it. That's why I really that was really a problem. And so when I started, I would move my
So this is all new, so that's why I'm here.
Start wearing, or have you not started wearing?
I have not fully yet. And I don't think it's because
Oh, keep talking. That wasn't even 2 minutes. I have a timer on.
So So that's good that you decided to wear it without on your own. That's very no, I went home to visit and I'm like, just like I just found it hard to relate to
It is a process. Because for me, what I started to do was that when I was younger, I stopped wearing like short
right.
Start switching over to the next person if you haven't. 2 more minutes, and then we'll come back.
Because when you get older, you should wear those type of clothes anyway. So that doesn't bother me. You know, I just think it's like, you know, more of the family.
We still got
like
2 minutes.
The family support and stuff like
Keep
that.
talking.
I think that
Find other things to explore. We got 1 minute and 30 seconds.
You know. It's there. So what grade you in now?
I'm in 11th grade.
Yes, you're going to be a senior. You know what college you're going to go to? Not yet. So what do you like?
I like so many things. That's the problem.
1 more minute.
So what is your passion?
I just have a passion for like learning interesting things.
Like learning interesting things as a woman or learning interesting things as doctors and lawyers?
I mean, I like chemistry, I like history,
So what are you good at?
arguably
All right, wrap up your conversations, please, inshallah.
I would love to do anything related to the sciences, but also with the science.
And now let's bring it back, inshallah. Sounds like I am now cutting off conversations.
My daughter, she actually wants to be, she started out in accounting. Got her bachelor's in accounting.
How was that? What did you learn from that?
Everybody's journey is
It's
so
so different.
Everyone's journey is really different. What was? Please don't mention names. So what was something that you learned from the people you were speaking with?
I think it's so interesting where, you know, some people feel like it's just something that they don't have really a choice with. It's just the way that, you know, this, like, everything around them, it comes up where
Like led up to it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then some people, I feel, it's like a very personal kind of a decision, and it's just something that you struggle with inside. It's more of like an internal struggle.
Yeah.
to
And I'm
get
really
that.
glad that you mentioned that because hijab is a very personal thing for some people. And it's not an easy conversation for some people to have, right? And it could be either or way, like they were forced to wear it or they're told not to wear it, right? And there's factors that come behind that. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that it is very different for every single person. So that means the way that we have this conversation, do we have the same conversation with every single person about this? No, we handle it very differently. And that's why I wanted you to go through that. And also it's just a little bit of self-exploring too, because some of us might have a very difficult relationship with hijab. And if we don't start looking inward and talking about it in safe spaces like this, that's the whole purpose over here, then how are we going to improve that relationship as well? So that was the purpose of that. I'm not trying to be mean. Maybe I am. But that's okay. That's my job. Anyways, now the other part of why I do this is I'm going to tell you a bit about myself and the therapy that I practice, because I'm very abnormal as a therapist. Like, I don't do things the normal Western way. So there's a really big book. I wish I brought it with me out of all the books I did. It's called the DSM. It's like the Diagnostic Something Manual, which is really bad. I probably should know that. Oops. But anyways, here's the thing. It is a way that Western physicians and clinicians came together to say, we're gonna take all these psychological problems and we're going to try to make a system out of it and organize it. And you know what, that's something I actually really do appreciate, and that's something very helpful. But the problem I have with this book is that most of the patients that were tested on were white males. That's one problem. And they're not taking into account of historical traumas that people who are from immigrant lands come from. So that's why I'm not a fan of it. And I also think not every single thing is a mental health issue. We don't have to pathologize everything. Right, Katie? Thank you. Again, Katie's, me and her are graduating in 2 weeks together, so I'm really pumped that she's here. For you and me, girl, I have to do it. Thank you so much for coming. But anyways, one thing that I like to practice as a therapist with all clients actually, even when it's white and non-Muslim American clients and they come to me, I practice from what's called a decolonial lens. So I know most people here are immigrants, so I'm gonna explain something to you in a way you'll understand. So how many of us wanted our kids to go to med school? You know how there's residencies and there's different specialties? Yeah, there's different types of therapists too, and different types of modalities and things that we practice. So for me, decolonial therapy looks at a person very holistically. So I have to look into counts of what is the political situation of this person, what is their immigration status, their socioeconomic status, what are some historical traumas that they might have faced, what are some racial traumas that they face, all of this stuff that's over here. And part of decolonial work is it's narrative therapy. We use this. And the main question, because every single therapy or modality has a guiding question that the therapist is thinking of, and we're asking ourselves when we're working with the client. And for narrative therapy, the question is, what story is this client telling themselves? And this works so beautifully with decolonial work, because what I want you all to do right now as you're thinking through this discussion, is what story am I telling myself about Allah, about who He is? Is He someone that's out to get me, ready to punish me? If I make one mistake, it's straight to Jahannam, just like the Imam on the khutbah stand is telling me? Or is He someone that He's a shuhud, who appreciates the little efforts that no one else sees? So how am I viewing Him? And then how am I viewing my relationships with other people? With my mother, with my father, with not just humans, by the way, but also with nature, with technology. What is my relationship with things like that? And then what stories am I telling me about myself? Am I someone who is very shy and introverted, and that means I shouldn't go out and speak? Or am I someone who is very bold and strong and I want to go out there? So what are we telling ourselves? But then the extra layer when it comes to decolonial work is, what stories am I being fed? What stories am I being fed that I don't even realize it's happening? And we're gonna get to hijab. I'm telling you, the first half of this, just to kind of get the journey started, I'm gonna be defining a lot of definitions, because I'm gonna be using them throughout. And not all of us have this. Has anyone even heard of decolonial therapy before? Oh, some of us, my girl, that's because you're in social work. I love you, thank you. Underappreciated people over here, mashallah. Allah bless you for the work that you do. But most of us here have not, and that's not fair to me to go into this topic and be okay, this is decolonizing stuff, and you're what is she talking about? So we're gonna start from the beginning, and then we're gonna build up. Does anyone know who this is? Yes, Mom.
Yeah, that's Edward Said. He was a professor,
Yeah.
and he wrote this really famous book, Orientalism. And Orientalism.
She's read a textbook for you, I swear.
Yes. And Orientalism means that we, the Western, we are very superior, and the others, they are the inferior. So the superiors have to teach the inferiors how to live their
My
life.
mom should give this lecture at this point, mashallah, look at that. Thank Jazakallah khair, Mom. Yeah, that's exactly what Orientalism. So this is Dr. Edward Said, and one important thing I want to point out, and I really appreciated this about him, he was not Muslim. He was Christian. He was a Palestinian Christian. And he talked about this book, Orientalism, which I have up here with me. I'm just going to tell you right now, you don't need to read the book. I know, this is shocking. I'm saying not to read. There's a documentary where he is in an interview, and I actually want to pull it up. Should have tested the speakers beforehand, but we're gonna figure it out together. Oh no, the speaker's not connected to this. If I play this on my laptop, will you be able to hear or no? Just be honest. Should I try? You guys are genius. See?
can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
90% of students.
Okay, I don't care about
The net
that.
result is
Okay, hold on. We're coming here. Okay. So there is an interview with Dr. Saeed over here, and it's literally called Edward Said on Orientalism. I was actually, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So I took, the way I discovered him was I first took an Islamic feminism class at Marquette, and that's how my journey with Arabic actually started over there. And this was the first video I saw, and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much work I need to do. Because this video, this whole interview blew my mind. I'm gonna give you homework. My first homework assignment, number 1, go home and watch this video with your kids and with your family, okay? So I'm gonna play about, let's say 4 minutes of it, and let's see. Has anyone watched Aladdin?
Yes.
Okay, he talks about, all the little kids in the back are raising their hands, they're so excited. They're like, yeah, we know what that is. You did too. I'm proud of you, Sister Anna. You go. All right, just Vanilla.
I come from a land, from a faraway place, where the caravan camels roam. Where it's flat and immense, and the heat is intense. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. When the winds from the east, and the suns from the west, and the sound in the blast is right. Come on down, stop on by, hop a carpet and fly to another Arabian night.
I mean, I myself, growing up in the Middle East, in Palestine and Cairo, used to delight in films on the Arabian Nights, done by Hollywood producers, with John Hall and Maria Montez and Sabu. I mean, they were talking about a part of the world that I lived in, but it had this kind of exotic, magical quality, which was what we call today Hollywood. So there was that whole repertory of the sheiks and the desert and the galloping around and the scimitars and the dancing girls and all that. That's really the material. The situation in the popular media is basically that Muslims are really 2 things. One, they're villains of one sort, villains and fanatics.
I will dispatch the American people to the hell they deserve.
And B, many films end up with huge numbers of bodies, Muslim bodies, strewn all over the place, the result of Arnold Schwarzenegger or Demi Moore, Chuck Norris. Lots of films about guerrillas going in to kill Muslim terrorists. So the idea of Islam is something to be stamped out. The whole history of these Orientalist representations, which portrayed the Muslim and the Orientalist as, in effect, a lesser breed. In other words, the only thing they understand is the language of force. This is the principle here. That unless you give them a bloody nose, they won't understand. We can't talk reason with them.
Watch the whole documentary, because the way Dr. Said explains everything in here is wonderful. But just from that brief video, what are your thoughts? What were you thinking when you watched it? Have we ever thought I'm actually going to point one thing out. When you watch Aladdin, have you noticed that the villains had an accent,
Yes.
but the main people didn't?
Yeah.
It's very subtle, right? It's very subtle. Yeah.
They
What's
have
your name?
Dina.
Dina, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. They have accent, and also the features are very different. The features don't look Western; they look like our people.
They look like what?
Like our people, or like
Yeah.
like brown people.
They're making it very clear, like, they're very different from us. Yes, that is one thing. They make it a point. Yeah, go ahead. Sada.
Hi, I noticed the kufia worn by a lot of the so-called terrorists, and it's ironic considering what it actually symbolizes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a symbol of more resistance, right? But now they're saying it's terrorists over there. I saw another hand up over here.
I'm Adij. I just thought it was nice to meet you. I just thought it was also interesting in the context of I've studied a little bit of art history. And so not just in this context, but in going back to older art that actually reflects when people first started exploring the Middle East or Africa or things like that. And there are full paintings with labels as if you can buy each thing in the picture. And markets shown for the consumer of the Western gaze. And so not just within media right now, but going back all the way to when the ships first sailed, there is media been created through time that shows us in this lens.
What did you study?
I'm currently in residency, but I have a studio art degree.
This girl. See, this is why we need more. I'm gonna go on a rant. Side tangent. Listen, parents. I actually really need you to listen to me. If you have kids and your daughter says she wants to go study history or art history, for God's sake, or journalism, let them go. Part of the reason why Orientalists and colonizers were able to infect us the way that they have today is because we were so focused on medicine. But in reality, the liberal arts is what actually influenced the way that we think more. So thank you for doing what you're doing and keep doing that. And I encourage people to please let your kids do it. I'm not making fun of medical students, okay? I'm not, or doctors. I know there's a lot in here. I love you guys so much. You're doing great work. However, I think we have enough. I think we're good. We did our job. Please spread out. Okay, rant over. Anyways, this is essentially Edward Said's rant, is that he's saying that Orientalism is the idea, like my mom's explained really wonderfully, is that the East is something like mysterious and exotic, and the West are like the civilized people that need to go to these backward Eastern people, and we need to fix them. And this comes from colonization, which is saying that, hey, we need to come in and physically invade this land, and not only physically invade it and strip it from its resources, but we need to change their culture and their mindset over here. Are we on the same page? Is there anything that I can clarify right now, or you have a question about? Did you kind of have a hand? Someone? No. Okay. Cool. Okay. How many of you have heard these terms of neocolonialism and neoliberalism? They're a little new. You have? A couple hands? Cool. All right. So just to briefly explain it, right now we don't really actually have what's known as colonies or colonization, because we all remember, AP US history, we're learning about Great Britain coming to the American colonies, so that was colonization, okay? A very, very explicit example of that, right? But today, we have something known as neocolonialism, which is, it's a more indirect way of colonization, and I have more of a description of what it is here, but it's more of saying that it has a more of an indirect rule. Can anyone think of an example of like a country that's going through this right now? We're kind of sitting in a country that is a great Western power, right? The United States, and how it influences other countries around as well. Same thing with Great Britain, France, and other of these countries over here. And the main thing that I'm going to focus on with our discussion, and there's more economic things that we can go into, it's actually the cultural imperialism, meaning that we're going to impose the language. So have you noticed that, there's kids that are growing up over here, most of them don't, I'm from Pakistan, I'm sorry, when my brother tries to speak Urdu with me, it's so bad. And I'm not saying mine's perfect either, and it's a shame that that's the point. But this is the sad reality right now. A lot of us have lost connections with where we came from. And this was done intentionally. This was not done just by sheer accident. And also just the way that we go about education. Most of us went, I'm assuming here in the US, right? Raise your hand if you went anywhere else besides the United States for your early education, I guess. Okay, so we have a couple actually. All right, then I'm actually curious. I'm gonna ask questions now because I'm learning from you too. When you were overseas and you were learning somewhere else, what did you learn in history class about the United States and about your own country? Did you learn anything specific? Oh, there's a hand in the back, yes. This was in Madison, you said? Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Yeah, Nawada.
So growing up, my parents were every summer we had to go back to the homeland. So we
Where's the homeland?
Go back to Libya.
Thank you.
And
but everyone else needs to know.
It's summer break, so we're excited to go back, but they would put us in summer school there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no summer. But what was so interesting to me growing up, and I was a kid and didn't really realize it until I grew up and look back on this, people would glorify the West and glorify America and glorify our leadership. Where I was like, why do you guys like? What is so interesting? Like, I don't think it's that great.
We're not even that great.
And they like tried to copy and like mimic, and I always found that so interesting. I was like, you're copying like low quality trash culture when you have such a rich culture here. So I always found that interesting as a kid, and like me realizing that as a kid, and then looking back as an adult and really seeing how powerful that influence was on the culture there at that time.
Yeah, and we're gonna actually touch a little bases into that. So thank you so much for sharing that experience. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a different experience. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. So for us, the colonization was not by the West, but was by the Arabs to the non-Arabs.
Oh, okay, tell me more about that.
It's like if you are anything but Arab, you are lower than them. You are like if you go to a restaurant and you see, it is known all Bengalis are cleaners or they're working in restaurants. Even if you see an Indian, it's like always the way you present, you're referred to, right? It's like that is what I grew up with. We still had the colonialism, but it was we were lower because we were not Arab.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? It actually, that comes from colonial powers too, because, and I think it's on the next slide, but one of the tactics they did is they pitted us against each other, this whole idea of Arabization. So thank you for pointing that out as well. We'll take one more.
So I grew up in Germany. And
oh, Michelle, from Germany, okay.
The narrative there is very similar to that in the United States. But in the summers I would go home to Egypt, and it's based on that too. It was always taught that all of the richer people, the people who had money and influence, went to American schools, French schools, English schools, and even German schools. And then the ones who didn't have money, they just went to the regular Arabic schools. And then so it was like implied that Western language and schools and everything, like even if you go to the richer part of Egypt, they will all speak like in their sentences half English. And that's like the trend, that's like just what's better, right?
Yeah, to kind of show that you have that prestige, yeah.
So that was always like on top, and then you had the Arabs, and then especially people of like darker complexion, or like people who went to Egypt for an education, like from deeper parts of Africa or even like Asia and stuff, were always considered like the lowest class of people.
Yeah, you covered so much on there. Thank you so much for that, Erin. So there's also division on socioeconomic status, on race, on where you come from, how much English that you know. I know there's so many hands up, but we gotta keep moving. I'm so sorry. This is what you get for coming half an hour late, y'all. Just saying. Otherwise, I would have taken my time. Yes, that was shade. But anyways, but we're gonna head into neoliberalism as well. And neoliberalism is, honestly, when I first read about it, I'm gonna be very transparent with you. I'm like, this actually sounds fantastic, because the whole idea behind this is it's about a free market and the government's not really involved with what you're doing. If I just said that kind of sounds nice, okay? If you ask me, I'm like, freedom to do what I need to do, trade, buy. The problem is, we're not taking into historical context over here, because it's known as economic colonization, because now the situation, we see it over here, that a lot of countries that we come from, they're dependent on these larger powers like the United States, like Great Britain, for their resources. And that's the problem with this. And now they're controlling the goods that come in and out. And with that, they're also controlling standards of beauty. What do we want to buy? Our clothes that we wear, things like that. So with all of this being said, Natasha Sandy is a wonderful psychotherapist. She has a page called Rehumanizing Ourselves on Instagram. Please follow it if you are interested. I don't necessarily agree with every single thing that she says. However, I do appreciate this blueprint. So who wants to learn how to colonize, everyone? You're supposed to say no. But anyways, this is the blueprint of colonization. And this is literally verbatim what she had. It says, invade a land that is not your ancestral land. So you did not grow up there, you have no connections there, and you violently impose your ways on the original or indigenous humans and non-human beings of that land. And you do it through 3 separate ways. So there's deceiving the people that are there, you're dividing the people that are there, and then you have violent social control, okay? And we see this where, right now, in America. We also see this in Palestine. We see this in the countries that we come from over here. And the biggest part that really it hurts me to see is that, so I have been in education for God knows how long. That's why I have a lot of wrinkles under my eyes, okay? Thing is, I'm supposed to laugh, come on. But anyways, the problem is the type of, I'll put it this way, I get excited when I see Muslims in higher education, but then I get also disheartened. You know why? Because typically, not all of them, but typically, the Muslims that are allowed to get in those high up positions are the ones that are secular. And there's often this like notion of, ugh, like I'm not like those. Have you guys ever heard that? I'm not like those Muslims over there. Do you know how frustrating that is to hear from me? And it's over something like she's wearing hijab, he's praying 5 times a day, she refused to shake a hand of a non-mahram. They're too extreme. They're doing their basic fara'id, and we're gonna shame them for it? Are you kidding me? And there's other stuff where we were talking about, I'm gonna talk about race for a second because it is so ridiculous to me, to this day, where people will say racism does not exist in Muslim countries. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Because why was it? Because any type of, when we study the seed of the Prophet ﷺ, any type of injustice, whether it happens to a Muslim or not, whether it happens to a human or not, is an injustice that we need to fix as Muslims. That is our job. So when our black brothers and sisters are protesting on the streets saying, hey, we have violently been disturbed and we need your help, and we're gonna sit back and like, no, that's your problem. And the only time I've noticed we care is when it's like, oh, it's black Muslims. We need to care about any person that's oppressed, Muslim or not, period. Is that clear? And this is, again, a colonial blueprint of dividing other people. Someone was mentioning about this whole Arabization, right? That is another problem over here, where some people might have a superiority complex if they come from an Arab country. But we have explicit hadith that says that there is no superiority if you're of an Arab over a non-Arab and vice versa. We know this. But why do we act on it? Where is that coming from? And we're going to get to that in a moment. So now you're like, okay, thank you for defining, Professor, I'm not Professor. Thank you for defining everything. That was the boring stuff. Now we're going to get into the hijab. We're going to talk about what on earth does this have to do with the hijab? So remember those 4 terms I talked about earlier? Colonization, Orientalism, neocolonialism, and neoliberalism. So I actually should have had you kind of guess, but it's okay. I'll do the work for you. For colonization, they use this as an excuse saying, oh my God, the people who are wearing this miskine, they're covering themselves. The men are oppressing them. Let's be their knight in shining armor and go save them. So they use this as an excuse saying, we need to go save these people. They need help. So that's colonization. Orientalism, if you notice, and I purposely, out of respect, because this is a masjid and I cannot put the photos up here, it drove the West absolutely nuts when they saw veiled women. Why? Because they couldn't see them. Because we, the people who wear hijab, we can see the world without being seen, and it drove them nuts. So if you actually look at, please be mature when you do this. When you look at paintings that Orientalists did of women in the East, they were very sensual, and it was normally in the hammams. It was super inappropriate. But that's because they're like, the hijab was they were so hyper fixated on it because it's like, wow, that's really different because other people don't do that, even though we know that that's not true. If we look at like even recent history in the West, women actually did dress modestly up until I would say about a century or 2 ago. Right? Like it wasn't an other thing. We also see that our Jewish sisters, they also cover themselves as well. If we look at nuns, aren't they covered? But we get the scrutiny of it. And why? It's because of Islam. It's because listen, Islam is something that we know this. It came as strange, and it's going to leave as something as strange. So what do the Prophets say? Glad tidings to the stranger. It's okay to be different. We're supposed to be different. Say, alhamdulillah, you're weird. It's great. It's great. Alhamdulillah. Okay, neocolonialism over here. Now we're looking at Western ideas or beauties. Has anyone heard of Fair and Lovely? Yes. Oh, the giggles. For those of you who don't know, in the Indo-Pak area, there's this cream called Fair and Lovely that you apply. Yeah, you're nodding your head. You apply on your skin, and it lightens your face. Oh, now, yeah, everyone's like, that's messed up. Yeah, it is messed up. And oh God, there's one, I wish I put the commercial on here. Does anyone know who Fawad Khan is? He's an actor in Pakistan. So I was watching a commercial and he was on there and I was cracking up at the before and after. Because the before, it literally just looked like there was dirt on his face. And after he used Fair and Lovely, oh, he looks beautiful. That's absurd. Like, we're laughing because it's so absurd to us. Who on earth are we to shame people for the way that Allah brought us to this world? And what's so sad is that these mentalities are still carried with us to this day. Like in Desi culture, it's like kala, no kala. Why are we saying it such a derogatory? There's nothing wrong with being black. There's nothing, and they'll say like, don't go out in the sun. You're gonna get dark. What's wrong with that? Like, actually tell me what's wrong with that. But then they get self-defensive and like, no, no. This is absolutely absurd to think this way. Or vice versa, or shaming anyone for looking any way. This is how Allah brought us into this world. And there's a book, I think I have it with me, it's called Blackness in Islam, written by Imam Dawood Walid. And it's really interesting because he talked about most likely Adam alayhi salam, most likely was black. Because he was made out of soil or clay. Have you seen any white clay around you? No, if you have, I don't know where you're traveling, but most likely he was a dark man. Are we gonna hate on our father Adam alayhi salam? Seriously? No, unacceptable. So anyways, going back over here, it's also telling us like what a modern woman should look like. So this is what neo-colonization has done as well. Okay? Now neoliberalism, I'm going to talk about hijabi influencers for a second. Oh my God, because when I was doing my research on this, that's what came up in my head. Because there is now a pressure with capitalism to keep spending and spending and spending and spending. And then it's funny because right now, Bella, just like, if you don't know what Bella is, it's a nice hijab company, mashallah. Don't judge me, Sister Anna, I have a lot.
Expensive. Don't buy.
As I'm wearing one. So listen, I'm a little bit of, yes, I'm a hypocrite for saying this, but listen. The problem is, it's like, I'll have issues with some of these hijabi actually, I'll say this. I have issues with hijabi influencers that go on there and they have partnerships with Zionist company. They're making money off of the blood of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Are you kidding me? And it's in the name of being successful. But what is success? Whose idea of success is this? It's America's. Not Islam. Because we're told to be humble and modest. And this looks different for every single person, by the way. But we're not meant to be consuming all the time, and we're also not meant to be showing off all the time. But this is what the West wants you to do. And it's pressuring us and pressuring us. So that's why when we have conversations with people who struggle with anything with Islam, but particularly I think the hijab and dressing modestly, be very gentle. Because the amount of messages we're receiving, I'm only talking about the West. I didn't even get to our communities yet, by the way. I'm roasting everyone. Like, it's hard. We have to acknowledge that it's to be a Muslim woman in the United States and wearing the hijab is one of the most beautiful forms of jihad, I think. This is my opinion. It's not easy because you do have a target on your back all the time. You're visible in your Islam, especially in a time when we have certain people in administration. You know, it's hard. But you're saying no, because I trust Allah. And if I get shot or if I get killed, at least people know I died as a Muslim, that I was Muslim when this happened. So we're going to go back to the colonization blueprint, and this is where I'm going to talk about what happens in our communities now. Because I'm talking about what they're making us think. Over here, they're a little decisive, been like, hijab is, have any of us heard of this? Been like, it's outdated. It's not really matching up to being a modern woman. I want to hear some of your stories. I'm talking a lot. Has anyone heard that or any stories? Yeah, Yumnat. I just called you Yusra. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I was at work and a patient came in and asked me if I would ever take it off to look prettier or to be able to go overseas or anything if it would be easier. And I was like, no.
You're like, that's a no, thank you.
No, I just didn't know how to respond because it's so wild that to even think that other people think like that. I always grew up my mom wore her hijab my entire life, so I always knew
women in Islam like wear hijab, and it's like other people never grew up with that. Other people like don't. It's so foreign to them.
Yeah. And yeah, that's true. So that's an example, but that was a non-Muslim patient that said that to you? Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yeah.
I used to, like, as a teenager, I used to work at the library, and I wore hijab during that time, and it was during the time when my younger sister first wore the hijab, and she would come with me to the library. And someone who I thought was like a good friend and advocate, like, had come up to her and said, "Oh, you know, you don't have to wear that. Like, you can take it off." To my sister.
You're a free woman here in America.
And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, it came out of left field and was so shocking.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? A lot of these people are well intentional, but the problem is, and I'm gonna like move forward a little bit over here. It comes to these movements of feminism and like, yeah, women's rights. Except if you're a practicing Muslim. Oh no, 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 no. Because it's stuff of like they just see it as so weird. And then oftentimes, because many of us I'm assuming are working or in places that we're in school or wherever it is, you feel like you need to keep explaining and justifying yourself. Like this is why I have to do it. And that's exhausting, by the way. As a therapist, I'm telling you, for you to feel the need to consistently explain yourself and justify yourself, that's not normal. That is very abnormal. Because you're on a survival mode at that point, because you have to justify your existence and why you're doing the things that you're doing. But it's a little bit of gaslighting too over here. Because in a land that claims freedom of religion, we value diversity, we have these wonderful DEI programs, but then the second a Muslim woman walks in wearing a hijab, they're like, it's a little too much. Or they get really excited, like, thank God we have a token, like, we can tokenize her, right? I'll take comments in a little bit, okay, inshallah, thank you. So now for the division part over here. When it comes to this, there is a division. I've noticed this because I'll share a little bit about my story about hijab. It's okay. I'll be vulnerable with you guys. I wore it about 7 years ago. No, I don't know. But anyways, we'll see. I wore it like recently. So I wore it when I was a freshman year. That summer after freshman year of undergrad. And there was many reasons that came. What's that, Mom? 2017. See, my mom knows my journey better than I do. Here's the thing. It's so interesting because the way I was treated right afterwards, wallahi, I need to mark my words over here. And if there's anyone that's considering wearing hijab, and inshallah, I'm going to be talking about some of the Quranic verses, you need to do it for Allah. Because if I did it for any other reason other than for my Lord, my hijab would have came right off. And unfortunately, it was because of my own community. It wasn't because of non-Muslims. In fact, they were supporting me. I had a professor who was my theology professor, and I had him as a freshman, so this was like pre-Hijab Nadia, and then I had him again for mythology, and this was like post-Hijab Nadia, and he stopped me once at the library, and he's a priest, and he was like, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Please don't try to convert me." I'm like, "Yes, you can ask me a question. What's going on?" He's like, "I taught you when you were a freshman, and you weren't wearing this back then. Like, did you get married? Like, what happened?" And I said, "No." But then I said, but he's like, "What, how?" And I told him my story behind it. And the words he said, because the comfort I got came from a Christian man. And he said, "How amazing is it that at a time when religion, and your religion in particular, is being attacked, you decide to wear it." I'm getting emotional about it because that's really unfortunate, because the messaging, I want you to guess, what is some of the messaging that you've heard for women who start wearing hijab? What do we start telling them? Were you forced to? Did your husband force you to wear it?
Around Walmart with my young kids, and
Yeah.
the lady was harassing me. She goes, "Did your husband force you to do this? Did your husband," like she's trying to save me. And
This
I'm
is
like,
a Muslim
"What?"
woman
And
doing
I-
it? Or I'm asking specifically for Muslim communities. I'm asking specifically how does Muslim communities do it? I'll take Sada and then I'll take hang
Well,
on.
one thing I noticed, alhamdulillah, I'm like married, but a lot of my friends who are trying to get married, a lot of the Muslim men will say that they want a girl who doesn't wear hijab. Or after getting to know somebody, sometimes the men will try to convince them to, take it off or be less. And obviously, I'm just saying it.
You're saying in general, it's a trend you've
It's
noticed.
actually a thing now that I've heard that, their husbands actually try to encourage them.
Yeah. You had something to say. Remind me of your name. I'm so sorry. Dina. Okay.
I don't want to diminish any of the support that the Muslim community has shown me, but when I first started to wear it, it was other Muslims who told me, who knew my dad and asked me if my dad forced me to,
Oh.
and then said it was middle-aged Muslim women who, when they came to the US, they took it off. So they told me, well, we came here so we could take it off. What made you like? Why did you decide to put it on?
Mm-hmm. SubhanAllah. Yeah, I'll take one more, inshallah. Go ahead.
I know for people like my age, like that's when some of the Muslims like start wearing hijab. So there are some people that I know who start wearing hijab or like occasionally wear it, and I've heard people make comments like, "Oh, why is she starting to wear it now? She's wearing it wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be." And it's not just the Muslim girls saying it; it's also the Muslim boys, but also like other people who think they know everything about Islam, non-Muslims as well.
Yeah, and I think it hurts a lot more when it comes from our own Muslim communities. Because anyone ever heard like someone say like, she doesn't even wear it properly, she might as well take it all off? Excuse me? She has something on. Celebrate the fact, celebrate her strength. She's trying. It's okay. Like, that's the thing is people expect like one expectation on me, people were like, oh my God, she's super religious now. And I'm like, hold on. Hold on. That's not true. Like, what does that mean, super religious? Like, yes, I consider myself like a practicing Muslim, but the way that they were saying it is like I'm super strict. I'm not gonna like think about like any other opinions or no. It's so dangerous to have that type of thinking of like it's this or that. Okay, and I'm gonna again go into that a little bit. But now, unfortunately, there is a little bit of a tension that happens to women who wear hijab and who don't. There is that division over there too, because now people who don't wear it, they might feel like internal bias, been like, okay, people don't think I'm a good Muslim. That's not okay. But then people who do wear it, they have this strong pressure to be perfect Muslimas. That's not okay either. That's too much. We really need to just, listen, we're all a group of sisters here, and we're in the United States. We really need to support each other whenever we can, especially when it comes to this. Support one another. It's okay. Do not stop someone from doing good just because you're not at that level yet. Keep supporting them. The last part I want to explain is violent social control, because now we're talking about, I mentioned this a little earlier, where I've noticed that in the higher academic spaces, the people who are there tend to be more secular. And a lot of times it's because a lot of people feel like they need to choose between their faith or their jobs, or how they're going to participate in society, and that's not true. And I'm going to say this because a lot of people, they have this like internalized thing like, oh, I can't do this, I don't want to like bother them, I can't ask off for Eid, I can't do this, I can't ask like for little breaks to like pray Salah. Did you try? I'm going to tell a story that Imam Ahmed, he's one of my teachers, he shared this. So he was, I forgot what town, and I should mention it anyways if I did, but anyways, he was mentioning how there was, so Jum'ah is fardh upon men, right? And he was saying that he contacted a local high school, so mashallah, he like did all the work over here. He had a bus system going that he's like, okay, like we're gonna take the boys from school to the masjid, they're gonna pray in Jummah, and then when we return, they're gonna have tutors so they can finish their homework so that like the parents and teachers don't have to worry. He went to the school board. The first thing the school board said was, absolutely, we'll do this, but you know what they also said? They're like, we've had Muslims in our like community for about 20 years and no one's even ever asked. And then it gets even worse. You know why the plan didn't go through? The Muslim parents said, don't do it. Yeah. That's hard. It was set up for them, but they're like, no, we don't want to be seen as different. That's the problem over here, where people keep feeling like they need to, I'll take your question in a second, they need to choose between their faith and how they're participating in society. Yes.
I think though now with Trump in power, it's very difficult. Like in our day and age, we could ask people for work and they have those private spaces where you're gonna pray and do like that. So they're totally against these, like they've gotten rid of DEI initiatives, they're different. So they hold that against you now. Like even our work is saying we have to do away with this, we have to do away with this. So now it's gonna get even tougher for Muslims.
You're right, it is gonna get tougher, but does that mean we stop trying?
No, we don't stop trying.
That's the thing.
But
And
I think with kids though, it's gonna be difficult to explain to them, you know, adapt this, do this, you know, like.
Yeah.
So I think as with any diverse issues like with, you know, LGBT community, with anything, their rights are going to be diminished as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, we have a harder fight ahead.
Yes, we do. But at the same time, the reason why I highlighted that first story is everything was laid out for them. The school board literally said, we will do this. And it was the Muslim community that said no. That's what I wanted to highlight, is that it's not that uncommon, by the way. I hear this from, because alhamdulillah, I've gone to travel throughout the US and I visit different masajids. I hear this a lot. And I'm like, come on, guys, you gotta at least try. Because if you don't, how are they gonna know how to support you? And I do acknowledge the political situation is very, very tough, but that does not mean we back down. We don't. If anything, this is the time we have to push it even further, okay? But thank you for that. Oh, India. Okay, so I'm a little biased. The whole reason why I actually went on this whole research thing about hijab is I was actually going through my own process of, well, why do I think like this and why does my culture say that? So the reason why I picked this is because I'm biased. I'm from Pakistan, okay? And I was trying to understand, well, why, just why? Like, why do we think the way that we do? Why are these cultural messages over here? So what happened? Mother Britain was like, wow, India is queen. Like, she has a lot of stuff that we really, really, really want. They colonized India. That is me just being very brief on what happened. There's one statistic, I couldn't not post this on here. 100 million deaths in a 40-year period. 100 million deaths in a 40-year period when British colonized India. India was known to be like the queen of the world. They had so many things. When Great Britain left, they stripped them from all their resources, and we feel the after effects today. And now what I want to highlight over here for our discussion today, because this is a whole different topic I could go on, it's the way, do you remember I said that one way that colonists get in is to divide people? Well, who do they divide? The Hindus and the Muslims, and that's how we got India and Pakistan eventually, right? And now there was also English education systems so we could make these kids more proper, learn English. We talked about this a little earlier, right? This was something that was very systematic over here. And now people are not confident in where their culture comes from, and we see this effect to this day. I remember when this is like, I'm gonna tell funny stories, but for me, I remember when I was like in school, I would be sometimes embarrassed to like pack lunch because I'm like, oh no, it smells too bad. And now like they're like, what is that smell? And I'm like, that's just fried onions. It's all that it is, brother. It's so funny. But there's a really interesting article. It's called The Hijab and the Saudi. And it talks about, it's really interesting. It's like, why, the question the researcher had was, why is the hijab seen as something as strange, but the Saudi is seen as something exotic and beautiful? Where did that distinction come from? Because they colonized both, right? The Muslims and the Hindus. They went after them both. The reason being is, actually, does anyone have a guess before I reveal the answer? Best guess, educated guess.
You can't see.
She's fully
No,
covered.
you can't see us.
Oh,
She's
I'm sorry. I thought we were having another technical difficulty moment.
No.
You can't see the women wearing the hijab. Yes,
Right.
that is part of it. Yes.
And she's covered, but she's still showing cleavage, so they feel that is not been. They just feel that that's more sexier, as they would say.
Yeah. Yes.
In the Western world than that.
Yes, that's part of it. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm gonna say the colors. So
tell
I've
me
been
more.
told, oh, you shouldn't wear black because that you're oppressed when you wear black. But how many Western women have the little black dress?
Right.
But you know, I picture that. You say Saudi, so immediately I'm thinking, oh, that's that black, and she is multicolored.
They can't see her eyes.
Okay. Yeah. One more.
I'm thinking also of the influence that the British had in the way the Saudis worn.
Okay. Tell me more. I'm so happy you mentioned that. Keep going.
So
She's getting close to the mark over here.
if I'm not incorrect, the Saudi used to be worn without a blouse.
Yes.
Yes. The British came and said that that's considered not proper. It's considered too revealing and like very civilized people don't dress like this.
Yes.
So they put their influence on it, and that was
Yes.
something that they own.
There you go.
Colonized.
She got it. So, The hijab overall actually was not touched. We actually, listen, this is one thing as Muslims we need to be proud of, is that we kept our tradition. For the most part, it hasn't changed. From about 1400 years ago when the Prophet ﷺ came, the main principles that we have, we're allowed to adapt, okay? I'm not a Salafi, okay? But we're allowed to adapt, okay? We can do that. The main principles we have, it didn't change, and this drove colonizers nuts. They're like, what? So they villainized it. And also that point of, how can she see everything but we can't see her? The other part, has anyone heard of Hijab, the TV show? One thing I do appreciate about that show, I'm not the biggest fan of the director. I watched it mainly for the aesthetics, just being very, very honest. But one thing, if you watch it, so the show, it's called The Diamond Bazaar for translation. It takes place in Lahore, which is modern day Pakistan, but at that time it was India, and it's when the British were colonizing them. Like there was a rule over there, British rule. And if you look at the saris and the clothes that the women are wearing, you see the influence of what the British were wearing too. You see the influence. It's slowly they're coming from Indian style, like pure Indian style, to the colonized version of it. So that's what it is that because, and also the last part of it is that a hijab is something purely a religious thing. It's a religious thing. A sari was actually worn by Christian, Muslims, and Hindus at the time. That was the other part. They were villainizing this whole movement of secularism. It's demonizing any type of religion that you're following. Mainly Islam. That's the main target today, but that's what it was over here. It's a very interesting research paper. It also talks about, you guys are familiar with Gandhi, right? So if you think about like, what did he wear? He mostly wore like a white, I'm trying to remember what it's called. Yes, that's what he wore. He specifically wore that as a resistance to the British, saying, you're not going to tell me what to wear. I'm not going to wear a tie or a suit. Now think of whatever you might about his politics, but that you have to give him credit for that, saying, I'm going to wear something simple. Don't tell me what to wear. So, do you guys need to take a 5-minute break? Are we good? Keep going? Good, okay. So how did we respond to colonialism? Well, colonialism is a type of trauma, okay? It's a good thing I'm a therapist. Alhamdulillah. So we have different types of trauma responses. The main one is fight or flight. We've heard of that, right? Has anyone heard of freeze or fawn? Some of us, yes, no. Okay, help me out. What would a trauma response for us as Muslims to colonialism look like if we were fighting? It's very easy, just tell me. Jihad. You want to fight them, you're going to rebel, and you're going to go to war, right? You guys were overthinking it. That is, you're going to try to fight, like physically try to fight, and fight for your land, fight for your principles. What does flight look like? Hijra, you're leaving, exactly. Many of us left. We did. Now, by the way, I'm going to make something very clear. I'm not blaming any of our parents or grandparents that had to come, because a lot of them did have to come for their safety, because it wasn't safe. So I have to make that very, very, I'm not shaming them. This was a survival tactic. And I'm not shaming anyone trying to survive. I'm trying to explain it. There's a big difference, okay? So some of us had to leave. What does freeze look like for a trauma response with colonization? What would freeze look like? Yes, in the back. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Playing dead. Can you explain more? Yeah, play dead. So like I have the bear up there because typically when you learn about fight or flight in like class, you learn about like, okay, if you see a bear, these are like the 4 ways you're gonna respond. Like you're either gonna punch the bear, you're gonna run away from the bear, you're gonna like lay down or freeze, or you're gonna fawn. So for a lot of us, most of it's actually just gonna be, sorry, I'm gonna go back over here. One thing I want to add about flight, actually, and this is I've seen a lot, is have you ever heard like this phrase of, oh yeah, this person's Muslim, but they're not part of the community? Have you heard that? It's like they don't really interact with the Muslim community. They don't really come to the masjid. They don't want to be with Muslims. That's part of flight. That's flight. They're running away from not only like their land, but also from their Muslim community because they have internalized shame about it. That's part of it too. Freeze is you're so overwhelmed, like you literally just don't know what to do. You're like, khalas, I'm done over here. Now fawn, this is the one I want to focus on. Does anyone know what fawning means? Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I can give you like an example of
Go
it.
for it.
It's like assimilating or like it says on the side, keeping them happy. So
Yeah.
like just making sure that you're not gonna anger whoever is against
There you
you.
go. You're doing, like, this is, with the bear analogy, hey, babe, you want some honey? Would you like this dead meat? I don't know. But anything, yeah, that's what it is. You're assimilating. For us as a colonial response, it's let's look like the people who did that. Like, let's just do everything, work ahead so they're not going to get upset. We see this a lot actually in people who are domestic abuse survivors. We see that a lot. Like, what they're trying to do is they're walking on eggshells of their abusers, and they're trying to, like, I just made him his favorite meal. They're trying to, like, keep the peace, but then there's so much tension over here. But what we try to do is we're gonna align with the colonial, but again, I'm gonna make it very clear, this was a survival tactic. Do I agree with it? No, but it's a survival tactic. We can't judge people who are trying to do that. Is this a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like fawning, you'd say was kind of conforming or
Yes.
giving in. So what would freeze mean? Like, is it like isolating yourself? But that would be flight.
Yeah, freeze is a little more tough to explain, and I actually lost my note on it, unfortunately, and I had it on here. Give me a second. Okay, so this is more, freeze is you're silent. That's the best way I can put it. Like, you're silent, you're not gonna say anything about it. Okay, so I'll tell you a funny story. There was one person, because your ears are gonna perk up, I was considering a guy for once, okay? And what turned me off immediately was like, I don't get involved with politics. Brother, you're from Palestine, you're gonna tell me you're not involved in politics? Your life is political, man. So like, call us, this is not gonna work out. But that's the thing, it's like you're gonna tell me you don't wanna get involved? You're gonna isolate yourself completely? So freeze and I would say flight are a little similar, but that's what it looks like. Does that make sense, Anna? I hope I clarified it.
No, that does.
Okay, all of this comes to this term that I call a colonized mindset, okay? A colonized mindset is something I think majority of Muslims in the West, and also the East, but my focus right now in the research has been on the West, that many of us suffer from. It's a form of internalized oppression, where we're saying that we as Muslims are just not good enough, we need to just bow down to our colonial masters instead of the one that created all of us in the first place. This is the problem over here. Does anyone know what learned helplessness is in psychology? Has anyone heard of that term? Katie, what is it? You took your NCE.
Oh gosh, I have it Thursday.
Oh, good luck. You got this.
Thanks, I hope so.
You got it.
I mean, it's right. Like people fall into a narrative that they believe about themselves, right? You go into a situation thinking that you can do something, but people already stereotype and say that you can't.
Yeah.
And that person is like, oh, well then I can't and won't try.
Mhm.
And won't give in any sort of way to resist that idea or show forward or even dig into like try.
Exactly. And one thing that we've seen, so Sheikh Hasid Noor, he came about a year ago. Did anyone attend that workshop? Because he was talking about, okay, you were there. I think I was saying
You didn't see me?
Shoot.
I was the
You were the center of the light, Sister Anna. I'm so sorry. Acid, I'm sorry. She's so funny. But anyways, when he came, he actually gave a wonderful, I shouldn't say wonderful, let me rephrase that. He opened my eyes, actually, because one thing he pointed out was that we've experienced so much violence, and I already knew that, but he actually showed some photos and some historic stuff. So one thing in India, again, not India, mashallah, that they've done is that they would personally take the ulama, like the scholars, purposely, they would gather them, they would shove them in cannons, they would gather people, all the Muslims, to watch it, and watch them blow up. Is that a normal thing to see? No. What's happening in Palestine right now? Is that normal for us to see that much violence? Edward Said, he was talking about when we watch movies, we're seeing like these, like the Muslim blood is seen as disposable, right? That's not normal to like see something like that. And it does something to a person for survival. So this is where, again, a colonized mindset is a form of survival, okay? Where they're saying, well, I'm witnessing so much violence, no matter what I do, no matter how much I pray, no matter how much I protest, no matter how much I vote, no matter what I do, it's useless. Have we heard that before? We've heard this, and maybe some of us have said that before too. There's some people where they're saying, I don't vote because what's the point? I disagree with that. I said there is absolutely a point because maybe it may not. Perhaps it's not going to affect the outcome here, but we have a Lord we have to answer to, don't we? Don't we? Any small deed that we do, it's going to go back to Allah. And any small deed that we don't do, we got to answer to Allah. Especially us. Listen, guys, we're in the West. We live in the West. We have a lot more to be answered. Let's just say the line of questions we have to answer is going to be a lot longer. We have to be ready for that. Are we ready to meet our Lord and have at least an answer that's somewhat acceptable? I'm still working on it. We all are still working on it. We have to do our best. That's all we can do is our best. The progress, that's up to Allah, but just do your best. Now, a colonized mindset, I was talking about fawning. This is an indirect way of it, is that we're just going to do things that the West does. We're going to dress like they do. We're going to talk like they do. We're going to get educated the way that we do, like that they do. It'll be great. So now when it comes to hijab, we talked about this a little bit. I'm going to read some of them, and it's really tough because all of these are things I've actually personally have heard, and it's really painful to go through it. And I know that maybe some of us have done it too. It's like you need to be perfect in your deen before putting it on. Is that true? Is anyone here perfect? No. But why do we say things like that then? Like really, you're gonna wear the hijab? Like as if like you're not good enough to wear it? Is that okay to say as well? No. You're covering your beauty. Like why are you doing that? You're covering your beauty. No one's gonna marry you. Well, thank God. Because if a man wants to marry me only about my beauty, then get him out of my face. We're supposed to be marrying people based on the principle of can you have someone beautiful? Yes, you're allowed to have that too. You can. Because again, it's about balance. But my issue with a lot of these messages that we're sending, one, it centers around who? Men. This is the problem. It centers around like what are men or what are people gonna think, and this is not acceptable at all. Because hijab was a gift from Allah. Get the men out of here. They have enough, okay? This is my form of ibadah, the special thing Allah gave me for Allah. Why are we putting marriage and like putting so much pressure on girls to do it? Because now what's happening is that people are intimidated of the hijab. The conversations that we have about it too. That's not acceptable. Over here, and this is, remember I was talking about different theories? So there's one called CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, and we use this quite a bit too. There's something called black and white mentality, meaning like it's this or that. And I talked about this earlier too. If you wear a hijab, you're a good Muslim. If you don't wear the hijab, you're a bad Muslim. There's no in between. Is that true? No. But this is, unfortunately, we don't give people that room to improve. Islam is about progress, not perfection. Because if we were perfect, we would all be angels. Allah has his angels worshiping him. He's got that covered. We just need to progress and do our best. I did not need to rhyme that, but here we go. We just need to progress. Every day, 1%. And it's okay that sometimes we're going to take a step back. It's not always going to be up, but sometimes it's going to go a little down too. You just need to be patient with yourself. Ask Allah to guide you, and you're going to keep moving forward there. So now, has anyone ever heard, God, I've heard this before on khutbahs, and I'll sit down the imams, I'm like, you need to calm down. You do. Because they'll go up there and like, when the verses of Quran, the hijab came down, the women wore it like so easily. Why is it so hard for you? I've heard this before. And they're asking it rhetorically, and I'm like, let's actually sit down. Let's actually talk about it. Why was it so easy for the female companions to wear hijab? Let's talk about it. What season of the Sirah did the verses of hijab come down? The Meccan or Medina? Medina. Did the Medina or Meccan period come first? The Meccan, like that period came first. So if hijab came over here, what was happening over here? Yes.
The Muslims, the Sahaba, would talk to love and appreciate Allah.
Yes.
And then later came the stuff that are forbidden and halal and stuff.
Yes. The Meccan verses focused on cultivating love for Allah Azza wa Jal and for respecting Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And also the Prophet Sallallahu, he was serving his community. He stood by the women of his community. So then when the verses came down from Surah An-Nur saying, cover yourselves, it was so easy for them because it's like the messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has proven over and over and over and over again that he loves us and he cares about us. Why wouldn't I do something that the person who loves me told me to do something? Why wouldn't I do it? Unfortunately today, I see this a lot when sisters convert. They're like, you have to put the hijab on. Gotta pray 5 times a day. Relax. We need to start cultivating that love for Allah and our messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam before we put this on them. It's very intimidating to do that, yes.
I also want to argue that culturally it was already a much more modestly dressing culture to begin with.
Yes.
Versus in the West, where in the current times it's just the norm to dress very modest.
And you're right, and that's part of the issue with, I think a lot of, unfortunately, I think people don't take that into consideration. That's why I was talking about colonization, because here in the West, I mean, listen, I go to Lifetime, I go to the gym, I'm uncomfortable looking at the women walking in there. I gotta lower my gaze. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm imagining, it's hard for men. But also, there's a part of me thinking, this is hard for me too, because I could dress like that. But this is a sacrifice I'm making over here. So you're right. That is a lot of pressure. That also when we go clothes shopping, it's so discouraging when you're going to the mall and every single dress, oh, it's a long sleeve dress, but there's a slit. Or and also in Pakistan, oh my God, Pakistan drives me nuts. So here's the thing. Why is it we're a Muslim country, but I can't find, automatically, I can't find modest clothing as a hijabi? Why do I have to ask for the sleeves to be lined? Or why do I have to ask to have sleeves added? That's part of a colonized mindset. Our culture is very colonized over there too. So thank you for bringing that point up. It's very difficult. So over here, now, have you ever heard of people being like, guys, hijab is actually not mentioned in the Quran. Allah didn't command hijab. Sana's laughing because she's heard. MashaAllah, Sana went to Qadam for a couple of years, so I know, okay. Don't be modest, alhamdulillah, own it. You did, mashallah. So over here, technically, I'm going to say, in Surah An-Nur, there, right? Do you see the word hijab up there? I know you can, I don't know if you can read it or not, but do you actually see the word hijab? Now you guys are like, what is she going about? What word is used telling the believing woman to cover? Veils, but in Arabic, what is the word used? Oh, I'm enjoying this. It's khomar. Okay? Or khimar. That's the singular version of it. Now, we're going to talk about this. The root letters of khimar is khamara. So is there any other word in Arabic, my Arabic speaking people? What other word do we know that has those words in it?
The wine.
Yeah, alcohol, right? Does anyone know what the relationship is between that? Yes. Alcohol covers your intellect, and also where's your brain? Here. Your head. So it was automatically, when the verses came down, the companions heard it, they knew right away, it's like, okay, we gotta cover our heads and our chest. So yes, technically the word hijab was not used. That's correct, by the way, for this. But another word was used that still conveyed the message of covering your hair. Are we on the same page about this? Okay.
Isn't this also the same ayah that people use to defend that khimar is like covering your face, like niqab?
Yes.
So it can be interpreted literally both
Yes,
ways.
and that's why we need mufassirun to explain all this. This is not me just telling you all this information, by the way. This is me talking to teachers, looking at, reading the books, and this is what it is. So thank you for bringing that up as well. So it's very important, as Sada was mentioning, that if you're reading the Quran just by yourself, it's actually very easily to misinterpret something. You need context, you need the hadith, you need seerah, and you need scholars that are trained in our tradition to do it. You need them.
Sister Nadia, I have a question.
Yes.
So you use the word sacrifice.
I use the word sacrifice.
Can you say sacrifice like when you're doing hijab?
I Did I use the word sacrifice? Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I don't connect, like, I think it's a strength.
I don't think I said the word sacrifice.
Yeah.
If I did, then might have misspoken,
Yeah,
but.
because whenever I cover, it's like my strength. It's like I don't
Yeah.
have to wear these sleazy clothes. I don't have to do this. It's
Oh,
like,
you know
it's
what?
so
I might have, because,
beautiful.
yes.
But I don't know how the youth are growing up, obviously.
For some people, okay, yes, thank you for, yes. For some people, it's harder. So maybe, like, hijab might be a great, listen, we all have different struggles, right? Soft. For some people, it is a sacrifice that they have to wear. It's difficult because maybe they're born with beautiful hair. I know for me, after I go to a hair salon and I'm like, man, I look really good right now. And then there's me, I'm like, okay, I'm cover up and go in my car right now. For me, at that moment, that is a sacrifice I have to make because I want to show off to people.
I feel like, I don't know, when I started, it was like liberating. I was like, I'm free now.
Yes.
Like, I don't have to do this.
Yes, and I'm going to get to that in a second as well. So thank you for mentioning. But again, everyone's experience is different. And everyone's like own experiences are different at different paths as well. So for some people, we do need to honor that it is a sacrifice for them. For other people, it is liberating for them too. It's different for everyone. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes,
Some
Oda.
people lose a lot. Like they
Yes.
they lose their families, they lose their jobs, they lose, or
Yes.
even like something small like going to the gym. I
Yes.
think wearing the hijab and sweating is uncomfortable. Like I'd rather work out at home without it.
Yeah.
So I don't sweat on it. Like,
Yeah.
Use the hot hijab. Very good.
I have heard about those.
Very good.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
You guys are funny. So, honing back in with the Quran, we have this verse from Surah Maryam that does specifically mention the word hijab over here. And this is talking about how Maryam alayhi salam used it as a barrier. So people did not see her when she was excluding herself, when she was worshiping. So hijab over here is having a barrier, okay? Just to give a little bit of context. So we do need to do a little bit of analysis over here. So again, hijab linguistically means a barrier which someone cannot see past, but our modern day understanding means a headscarf, okay? And the problem, like I have to like really highlight this because unfortunately I do hear people being like, oh, hijab's not fard. I'm like, sister. I heard it from sisters, by the way, not men. Sisters will say this. And I'm like, sister, it is. And it's okay if you're uncomfortable with it. Like, I'm gonna honor that discomfort because I'm never gonna tell someone how to feel, but do not ever change the religion because of your discomfort. Don't ever do that. So over here, and also again, with the Quranic sources, we're told to not expose our adornment except what just necessarily appears, and then we wrap our heads. And also just the way that the companions automatically responded to, this is how we understand Quran over here, that yes, you cover your head. Does that make sense? I really have to get this point home for a lot of people, because a lot of Orientalists will actually abuse this. Okay, we have hadith. First of all, who narrated this hadith? What does it say up there? Aisha, radiallahu anha, a woman. A lot of feminists will say, like, oh my God, you don't have to, like, what we're talking about, like, you don't have to wear this. You're free now. It's okay. I don't know what that was. That was scary. But anyways, over here, what we're going to talk about is that for Aisha radiallahu anha, it's a woman narrating this. And she is praising the people. When they heard these voices, they immediately covered up. So how dare we say, like, we are gonna respect women, but we're not gonna listen to the voice of a woman who's saying that hijab's important? She's affirming this. And our mother, Aisha radiallahu anha, she's amazing. She used to correct the male companions, by the way, when they made mistakes. So this is a lost tradition that we have over here, a female scholarship. It's actually abnormal for us today. We don't have many female scholars. It's really weird, and it's really sad. And it's also even weirder for us how the female scholars, they seem to only talk about issues that are only with women. But Aisha radiallahu anha, she was a master in different topics. And people used to go to her for different things. It wasn't just about what women had to do. We need to bring that back, actually. Over here. Bye, Katie. Thanks for coming. Now, over here, who else is narrating this? More women. And just to clarify, the specific narration here, and I'm going to go into depth with this one. This is the one that Hafsa, the one that's in the translation here. This is the one that Hafsa radiallahu anha narrated. There is another one, but it's in a different angle. Okay, just clarifying. So I'm going to read this out loud. It says, a lady came and stayed at the fortress of Beni Khalif. She mentioned that her sister was married to one of the companions of Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who participated in 12 ghazawat along with Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his sister who was with him in 6 of them. She said, "We used to dress the wounded and look after the patients." She, her sister, asked Allah's Messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, "Is there any harm for a woman to stay at home if she doesn't have a veil?" He said she should cover herself with the veil of her companion, meaning that she should borrow like a jibal, that's actually what the hadith says, from someone else, and she should take part in the good deeds and the righteous gathering of the believers. So I know this is like the direct translation I got from the website, but the overall thing that the Prophet is saying is that, listen, cover yourselves and participate in society. That's what he's saying. Because one thing I've noticed, a lot of people are like, oh, women should just stay home. Just stay over there. It's okay. And by the way, that's okay. That's what you choose to do. That's okay. That's your choice. But also, it's a part of us to take care of the community. There's a war happening over here, and he's saying, yes, go out, serve your community, but you need to be dressed appropriately to that. Does that make sense? This is again affirmed by women over here. Okay, now this reflection, man, I was ready for this. Because I was thinking a lot. And this is my personal reflections, my reflection as a therapist, also as a very part-time student indeed. Listen, we were talking about hijab as liberating, right? Before our phones, what did we use to look at ourselves? Mirrors. Before mirrors, what did we use to look at ourselves? Who said water? My girl Nadia. Yes, water. Now, is the reflection of water, do you have a very clear image of yourself? No. So I'm going to tell you something. Part of what colonialism has done, it has infected us with this capitalistic thinking of, I need to keep changing what I look like. Like, it infested us with, what do I look like? How am I appearing in public? Do I need to get a new bag? Do I need to get a new, even like with hijabi culture right now, let's be real. Am I wearing the right hijab? Is it styled right? Do I look okay? We're so preoccupied with that. But here's the thing, the way that we were created, our ancestors, the way that it was for them, is that what they did, they were not preoccupied necessarily all the time with how they looked. I'll take your question in a second. They were more occupied with experiencing the world around them. They would go out and experience nature. They would experience the company of their sisters, of their husbands, of their family members. That's what it was. But unfortunately, what we live in today, we're so infested with like taking pictures all the time, needing to capture which is a beautiful thing. But personally, I think one photograph is enough. Khalas. Try to, actually, this is a challenge I have for you guys, because I know this is an issue that we have. Try to go to an event, just take one photo. Because if the claim is I take photos to remember the memory, you just need one photo. Really, you can still remember the memory. Yes, what was your reflection?
Is this more like a problem for the youth? Because I mean, like I'm older, so I don't see I feel like where, like media and those kind of things, I don't really too much get involved in like hijab styles or, I think, is it the younger generation?
I think it's everyone, because I see it with the older generation too. I'm gonna say, like, there's parties that I go with, like, aunties are lining up taking like 50 pictures of the same pose. Which, fine, if that's your idea of fun, that's okay, but what I'm pointing out right now is my issue with that is the over consumption of the way that you look, and you're not experiencing the way Allah wants you to experience the world.
So it's like social media that's driving all this.
Part of it, yes. Yes, and the capitalism drive to keep keeping have you heard of the what's it called, keeping up the Jones? Of there's a family on a hill, you want to keep up with them and what they're doing, and they have all these new things, but you can't. That's exhausting. Yes.
Sorry, just the way that the algorithms work as well. It's like you look something up once, and now every time you're checking your Instagram, it's like you're now bombarded with 20 different styles, and you're like, oh, maybe I should. So
Yeah.
I think it's like a lot of the phone and social media culture, and the more you stay away from it, it's healthier actually.
It is. Social media has a really, really big part of it, but it's also the people that you're surrounding yourself with too. It's also that.
People who don't do social media, they're not surrounded by a lot of
Yeah, that's
people,
fair.
so.
But again, the main lesson I really want to hone in, this is what hijab frees you from, is you're not as preoccupied with that. Am I saying that you are completely free of it? No, we're not. But it frees you a little bit of that you, listen, you, all of us, are meant to experience and be experienced. Because all of you, I know many of you in here, and the ones that I don't know, come say hi. I'm pretty nice, inshallah. I want to experience you. I want to know more about you because Allah has put you here in this world with all these sisters in a room for a reason. That is not a coincidence. Experience each other, learn from one another. I want to learn from you. You guys are learning something from me, inshallah, I hope. Inshallah. She's okay. Thank you for the affirmation. That's the whole point of the human experience. We keep learning, we keep progressing, and inshallah, we don't end here, but we go back to our Lord and we get to be reunited. Yes, Anna.
I also think that part of it is because we see so many pictures and so many like angles of people that we don't usually see. It's like I've seen this one trend on TikTok a while ago. It was like, oh, film yourself walking from the back and see, and it's like you never see that angle. Why are you creating an insecurity that
I'm
is
Judd.
there?
Yeah, there's just weird trends that people come like where it's like, oh, like my face like looks good individually here, but as a whole it doesn't look good. Like there's weird stuff over here. Yes, Ada.
I think that's why our like in our day and time we have a lot more mental health issues because I don't think we're meant to be perceiving ourselves as much as we
We're
do.
not.
And,
We're not.
And also just technology, majority of humanity was disconnected. We're the only time that is connected so much, and you're not supposed to be exposed to as much as we are.
Yes.
And I think that's why so many people have like body dysmorphia issues because they're looking at I've done it where I'm like, I want to see what I look like, walking and like different angles. So yeah, that's just something I thought. So.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that because the other part, I didn't even touch on this, but it's like filters and people lying about filters or people, oh my God, when people are like, oh, I got subtle, natural Botox. That's so harmful because that's not your natural face. That's not your natural, there is beauty. You know, one thing I really appreciate, I was in Chicago with a good friend of mine, she moved, but we went to the botanical gardens over there, and in Japanese culture, aging is seen as something honorable and beautiful, and they would purposely, at least with their plants, they would try to manipulate the trees or the bonsai trees that they have to make it look older, and it says that we actually respect, like, aging. And me and her, like, mashallah, we were just staring there, we're like, do we send a screenshot and send to all the WhatsApp auntie groups? Or we're like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna yell at.
That's probably because they don't age that much. So.
No, alhamdulillah for genetics. So, inshallah, now I know I talked about very, very heavy stuff. Thank you for hearing and listening me out. We're gonna go on a little lighter journey now, and inshallah, we're actually almost wrapping up. So I should be able to finish by 5:30. Bismillah. I might take 10 minutes more, but I have the mic for all my hostages. It's great. Anyways, so what steps do we take now? Because how many of you are feeling a little overwhelmed actually? You're like, oh my God, there's actually a lot over there. Somewhat. It's okay. Listen, when I was going through this whole process, I'm like, I hate living in America right now. So I want to go back to Pakistan, relive the life, and then I'll talk to people who just came back from Pakistan. I'm like, never mind, I like my toilet, we're great, it's great. But here's the thing. So, what do we need to do to start decolonizing? And I have 4 things for you to do, okay? The first thing is you gotta make dua to Allah. Before you do anything in your life, whatever it is, make dua. And you can literally say, Ya Allah, help me decolonize my mind. That's it. You don't have to get all fancy with it. I do have a couple of duas after this as well, but you need to cultivate that relationship with Him. You remember I was telling you about narrative therapy? It's like, what stories are you telling yourself about Allah? Because if you might have a resentment, been like, why is Allah like making me wear this? Or why is Allah making me do this? And it's done in a really like negative way, you gotta explore that. And my recommendation is go to imams that you feel comfortable sharing these tough emotions with. Not every imam is gonna be your taste, by the way. And I go to some imams for certain things, and I go to other ones for other things. Not that I'm cherry picking, I'm staying within the deen. But I'm trying to understand and get questions too. So you got to build those relationships with local scholars and also scholars abroad as well. The other thing is, y'all, we need to read our history. It is so bad. We don't know our Sira. And if we don't know our Sira, we don't know the Prophet. If we don't know the Prophet, we don't know how he interacted with women that he was around. Sira is filled with so many wonderful women. It's incredible how many women were involved with the journey of our beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but we don't really talk about it. I got book recommendations, don't worry guys. We also have to learn about female companions and also other major female people in history, because Muslim women did not end during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. There were many powerful Muslim women that came afterwards. We just don't know about them. I got books on that as well, don't worry. And also your ethnic origin, because a lot of us do come from places that are not the Americas. So we have to understand, what was the political situation like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, and how did it influence the way that my culture thinks today, how I think today? That's why I showed you things from British India, because it helped me understand, oh, that's why they think like this. Ab samajh aa gaya. We're good. And also, the other part is with your community members. You're all here today. Congratulations, you did one part of it. Connect with your community. Community is so important, you guys. The first thing the Prophet ﷺ came is that he established a masjid, a place for people to connect with one another. And then the third part, this may not be applicable to everyone, but I'm gonna be honest, I think it's applicable to 90% of the people here, is go to therapy, but I'm gonna tell you how to do it in a second. Why are you laughing over there? Can't laugh, therapist. So here's a dua over here. I can send screenshots of it. This is the dua of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, and it's one of my favorite duas. Because if you look at it, he says, Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak wa hubbak man yuhibbuk wa amal alladhi yubalighuni hubbak. Allahumma aj'alna hubbak ahabba ilay min al-nafsi wa ahli wa min al-mal barid. Oh Allah, I ask you for your love, the love of those who love you, and the deeds that will bring me to your love. Oh Allah, make your love more beloved to me than myself, my family, and even cold water. I don't have time to dissect this dua, but one thing I'm going to say is that it covers like everything, from the personal self, from family members, and it's also just centering Allah. Because if you're asking Allah for His love, and you're asking Him to send you people that love Him, you don't think He's going to protect you? You don't think He's going to guide you? Go ahead, take a picture, it's okay. I'll smile for you. But anyways, this is one of my favorite du'as. Make this du'a every day. Try to get in the habit of it. And this one by Umar ibn Khattab. And this is so suitable for someone like Umar radiallahu anhu to make a du'a like this, because he was known as Al-Furqan. Does anyone know what that means?
Is to make clear.
Yes.
To make something
To make something clear from right and wrong. So for him, he says, show me the truth is truth and guide me to follow it. Show me the falsehood is falsehood and guide me to avoid it. This is really important, because we're in a day and age where someone can have a beautiful Arabic voice, get on TikTok, and you believe he's a sheikh. He doesn't probably even know what he's reciting. Let's be real. SubhanAllah. You have to be very careful on where you get your knowledge from. Very careful with that. And that's why we make this dua. Because, you know one thing, I love Malcolm X. I consider him, even though he's passed and I've never met him, inshallah we get to meet him in the next one for Firdaus, inshallah we get to meet him. I consider him one of my teachers, because one thing, he gave a lecture, I believe it was at Harvard University, and afterwards because he was part of Nation of Islam at the time, and someone came up to him afterwards and been like, I really pray that you get the truth. And you know, someone like Malcolm, he could easily get defensive and like, what do you know? I just gave a lecture at Harvard. Like, what do you know? You know what he said? I said, Ameen. Because he said, yes, I really do hope I get the truth. He only spent a couple years of his life in Sunni Islam, by the way, but the impact that he made in the world is something we still feel today. And I think I have him here. So now, I told you to read your Sira. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Here's some wonderful recommendations that my teacher, Imam Ahmed, has recommended for us as his students. Go ahead and take a picture of that, inshallah. And I can also send a guide as well. Or you can listen to it, because not all of us have time to read. There's some podcasts out there, and I try to get some different sources or different flavors of it as well.
Can you go step back?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going quick. Okay. Do I look good, guys? Is my angle great?
You look amazing.
We can listen to it. If you don't connect with the Prophet ﷺ, you're not going to understand what the Quran is telling you. Yes.
Sorry, just wanted to add, there's a beautiful series by Sheikh Omar Suleiman.
Oh.
It's called The Firsts and the Forerunners.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
basically, it's like over 100 episodes. It's beautiful, beautiful. And it's a lot about the women. Like, there were so many women in Islam that I didn't know about before
Okay.
I started hearing the series. Like, it's just beautiful.
The First and the Forerunners by Omar Sheikh Suleiman. Okay, did everyone hear that? Thank you. I appreciate you. Okay, women in Islam. Oh my Lord. Y'all, learn about your mothers, please. And actually, learn about your actual mothers if you can. The women in your families, the stories that they carry, my mom's right here, and she can even tell you. I sit down with my grandparents and I'm like, so tell me about your childhood. Tell me about everything. And it's funny because some of the stories they tell me, I just crack up. I'm like, you guys were so. It's bizarre to me to think of my grandparents as young. SubhanAllah, may Allah bless them. But I have some of the books here as well. The first one I actually highly, highly recommend because when I went through it, Dr. Celine Ibrahim, she went through all the times women and just anything having to do with like females was mentioned in the Quran. It's more of an academic read. It's actually about 100 pages. It's not long. Okay, I promise. It was really powerful to go through it. It was more of an organizational thing, and I'm going through it, and I said, wow, I never went through Quran through a more, like it's a feminist lens. Feminism's not a dirty word, but I think I have to get that out of the way. So it's over there. And there's other resources as well, and I'm guessing you said the first had women in that series as well, so we could use that as well, inshallah. Muslim history, man, the amount of people who do not know what happened after the Khalifa, like the four righteous, oh my God. It's sad. Man, we need to know, especially recent history. We gotta know what happened. And that's what learning about colonization really, really helps us. The first one was something actually reckoned by Qadi Noman Hussein, who used to be the imam over here. Then he decided he was better than us and went to Qalam. It's fine. But anyways, I'm kidding. We love QN. We love QN. We can roast him too, inshallah. But anyways, he recommended the first one. I read the second one, actually. I did not read the first one, just making that clear. But I did read the second one, and I liked it because it's told in more of a humorous way. I didn't see anything necessarily that was kind of controversial, in my opinion. But again, I'm going to put that out there. We do